What do you think are the biggest keys for 0 to a mil?
I think the number one reasons why, like products or offers or anything you want to sell doesn't work is because
What's 1 to 10?
at 1 to 10, you're probably figuring out where you stair step, but then 5 to 10, it just breaks down. Like this is also the freaking hardest part of the whole gig because you're starting to get to where you can almost pay for good salaries and experienced talent. But a lot of the people that you're hiring for like high potential.
A lot of people, they struggle with having a good core leadership team. What's kind of your system?
You would almost rather have someone with no skills. That's a more valuable thing to the company. If you're stuck around like 30 million, you're like, shoot, I can't get to the next level. It's probably like that really was the difference between driving between 30 to up to 100.
In this podcast, I interviewed Josiah Grimes. Josiah owns New Reach, which is a portfolio of over 20 brands doing over high 9 figures a year in the education space. And most notably, he's partners with Pace Morby and Sub2, which does over $100 million just on its own. So we break down really what Josiah's journey was going from 0 to a million to 10, 10 to 30, and then 30 to 100 plus. And we talk about hiring, interviewing, and so much more. So if you're an operator who really wants to scale, this is going to be the podcast for you. So we'll start with 0 to a mil.
Yep.
What would you think are the most? I know the story was Sub2. You basically just launched it and you were at 10.
Yeah.
but just for people who don't have the luxury of launching something and being at 10 within 30 days.
Yeah. What do you think
are the biggest keys for 0 to a mil?
0 to a million? I think honestly, it's more the soft stuff. And some like it's not, but it is. Like some of it is you got to start with, you have to have enough faith. Like you have to do a lot of hard work in order to get there, right? And that means you need to have enough faith that you can do it, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people, if they've never started a business, it's like, oh, I'm gonna go start a business and make $1 million. It's like, okay, well that's like a pipe dream. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so then you're not gonna work hard towards something you don't think is accomplishable, right? So I think it's like base level, you gotta have some faith that you can accomplish it. And then 2, you gotta be willing to put in the work. Frankly, whatever your main like industry or domain is, I mean, if you're super just kicking it off, right, and you don't have any core competencies, you probably want to build up a couple core competencies, right? Like you had a core competency in copy and sales, right, amongst other things. But I think if you can build up 1 or 2 of those, like that helps you a long way, like gets you a lot closer. And then I think it's iterate fast, fail fast. So, and I think we've talked about this, but like you don't have to build the whole freaking thing. You know what I mean? So like, if you're like, I think that I got a great idea. I could start a really cool new energy drink brand, right? All right, well, before you go and try to find manufacturing and build the recipe and everything else, like try throwing up a landing page and drive a little bit of traffic. See if you can sell some of them. Because if you can't sell them economically, then like you can figure that out in 24 hours and not spend 9 months on it, right? Mm-hmm. Like I think the biggest thing is like make it very nimble. Like your first business, going to $1 million, make it really nimble. Try a lot of things as quickly as possible, as cheaply as possible. Don't go get a brick and mortar to begin,
Yeah.
Like those types of, I think those are big.
As a side tangent, I'm curious what your thoughts are on this. I tell a lot of people, because I think income traces skills over time. Mm-hmm. So your skills are your ability to solve problems. If you have a lot of skills, you can solve problems. People pay you to solve problems.
Love that, yeah.
And so I think that the easiest way to learn a great skill is to find an industry that you're passionate about. Go work for like an up-and-coming company in that industry that's like dynamic. It's not super bureaucratic. And then go learn a skill in that industry, whatever the skill is, that's closest to the value creation. Mm-hmm. And so like in software.
It's a great call out.
It's
I like that.
Develop. Oh, I got this from the Dharmesh.
Okay.
I just stole it from him.
That was good, dude.
Dharmesh.
Shout out to Dharmesh, dude.
HubSpot. Yeah, I just stole it from him. I was like, I'm just going to say that from now on when people ask me what to do. That was like, I can't beat that.
That's super good.
But he was saying like, okay, great. In software, you want to go learn development because it's a product-based business that's closest to value creation.
Yeah.
If you're in home service, it's more about less demand gen, but it's about like leading like blue collar techs and people who can be tougher to manage or tougher to recruit, or even being bilingual. Let's say if you have a cleaning business and a lot of people are like, let's say Spanish. In the education industry, a lot of it is marketing and sales. And so whatever that is, it's like, as a young person, I want to learn the skill that's closest to value creation. And then from there, you can start your own consulting business or start another business in that niche and whatever. I'm curious if you would agree with that. Or
100%. Yeah, I like the idea of keeping it to whatever the core competency that actually is closest to the revenue engine. You know what I mean? Like
value creation.
Value creation. Yeah, I like that a lot. Because I mean, you can tangentially be close enough to like when I started with Cody, I was the intern, right?
Yeah.
But I was the intern for Cody, who ran the company, And so like that was close enough to be able to participate in a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
Right. And
Because naturally he was close to value creation.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so like that ended up working out great. Whereas if you're like, well, I'm in this really cool startup and I'm in HR, it's like, well, if you're trying to, like if you're in HR for engineering, that's a trickier path than maybe if you're in operations, you know what I mean, for that same company.
Yep.
I mean, it depends on the company. If you're trying to start a recruiting firm, then going in and learning how to recruit and being in HR might be fantastic. But
I had no idea. I knew nothing about recruiting. We just learned it as we went. But I knew marketing and sales, and I knew stuff about sales teams, which you help people build.
Yeah.
So that's what helped. So okay, let's say we're at 1 million. Somebody's figured out an acquisition system, how to generate leads, how to sell leads, and essentially have product market fit. Which is what I would say is like getting to $1 million.
Yep.
So what do you think about 1 to 10? Once they have those 3 things in place, what's 1 to 10?
1 to 10. All right. So 1 to 10 is really fun. It depends on the business and like what your fulfillment mechanism is, because you're at 1 to 10, you're probably figuring out where you stair step. And if you're like what marketing, like you either need to expand your marketing channels. So that's 1. 2, you might need to just increase the amount of content you generate for that same marketing. Like a lot of people get stuck because they're generating the same amount of content for their marketing, and then their marketing like costs stair step. And so like, before they scale, they go from like 1 to 5 million and like the economics still work, but then 5 to 10, it just breaks down.
Yeah.
Right. And that's either because their fulfillment sucks. So like their fulfillment didn't scale. Like you need to build the full model, right? Where it's like, okay, this is how many people I need to hire on the fulfillment side for 100 new people I bring in on the front, or 100 new clients over here, or 2 new clients. I need this on the back end to service that. And so you need to scale the model, in totality altogether. But part of that is, whatever's generating your business, which is generally marketing, there's probably some content equation, and a lot of people get stuck because they don't make more content, and they're like, oh, well, that marketing channel's capped. It's like, well, maybe you just need to maybe you need a more dynamic content team that can bring in more eyeballs for the right costs.
Right.
And then, I think that generally can take you to 10 million. With that, I mean, you're also building out, like, this is also the freaking hardest part of the whole gig, because at this point, you've hired some people in that were sub $1 million. You're starting to get to where you can almost pay for good salaries and experienced talent. But a lot of the people that you're hiring for like high potential, right? So like they should be able to solve really complex problems, but they probably haven't solved those specific problems before.
Yeah.
If you're hiring younger, because younger people tend to be a little, like, you can sometimes get high potential, not a lot of experience, and in the right price range. If you're, business doing $1 million to $5 million, okay, well then you've got management problems, right? Like, because they aren't necessarily professionalized, and they don't necessarily have that level of professional maturity in a workplace to know like what back channeling even is, right?
Yeah.
Or that the difference between maybe structure and bureaucracy, right? Because you'll start to apply 1 to 10 million, you're going to start to apply structure, which basically limits how everyone can talk to each other, right? When you're like 5 people, you guys can all just sit around a table and everyone hears everything all the time, right? So it's like 1 to everyone. Like that's your one way to communicate. When you go to 30 people, right? Well, now information can find its way through the organization a bunch of different ways. And a lot of what you're doing from like 1 to 5 million especially is defining roles, building out structure around who does what, when they do it, how it's communicated. And so then as you're doing that, which allows you to have playbooks that you can continue to operate. If someone quits, you don't have to freak out and fill that hole, right? Like you want to build out onboarding, training, all that from 1 to, let's say $10 million bucks. But you're also having to train up, these younger people in your org on professional maturity and them understanding like this is structure, it's good for us. Bureaucracy makes you less efficient. It's rules that make you less efficient. Structure is rules that make you more efficient, right? And so you're applying structure, you're probably getting pushback from your initial team, so you're managing through that. You have to build out all the structure, which is good. So like and at this point, most of you're just getting to the place where you can hire people that can initially come in, have the experience to take real work, meaningful work off your plate. So basically what I'm saying is that section of business is really freaking hard.
Hey, if the way you sell your product or service is through phone sales, you need to stop using booking systems like Oncehub, Calendly, iClose, and other booking systems that aren't designed specifically for a phone sales approach or a phone sales team. So we at Saleskick just launched a new calendar and booking system that'll decrease your cost per book call because it's conversion rate optimized specifically for call funnels, whereas most other calendar systems are meant for corporate all-purpose booking, and it'll increase your show rates. So we've had clients see 30 to 100% 20% increases in their show rate because our calendar system is specifically designed for call funnels and other funnels that are high volume sales call booking funnels. And the software does so much more. It's really the only product designed specifically for sales teams with inbound booking systems. So if you're interested, go to saleskick.com, check it out. Now back to the video. We'll talk about the bureaucracy versus structure. And bureaucracy makes you less efficient. Structure makes you more efficient.
Yep.
Yeah. Talk about that. I've actually never heard that.
Okay. Yeah. So, like, I think this is super important, and it's like a main pushback you're going to get from that initial team going to the next stage. And you, as an entrepreneur, you need to know that there's a difference between those two, right? Like when you say everyone's like, let's say you set core hours of working hours. Like before, everyone just kind of worked all the time, but now you're like setting core hours where everyone's got to be here from 10 to 3 so that we can communicate. And now you're setting up like, designated stand-up meetings every morning.
Right.
And you've got different Slack channels, and people have to put in a freaking IT request. Like they can't just walk over to the IT guy.
Yeah, and just everybody dumps on one person.
Yeah, right.
We had this one lady, she about blew her brains out. She was my first ops person. And there was a time where like, if you had any ops request, it was just like everybody just goes to this one person.
Descends on this one person. Dude.
And funny story, like, I mean, she's a nice person, and honestly, I just wasn't a good leader back then. But it was one of those things where I didn't put in the right structure. So then they were like, "Can I just be COO?" And I was like, "Yeah, titles don't mean anything. You're COO now." And then it was, "Oh well, COOs make this on whatever."
Yeah, dude,
salary.
instantly goes to that, bro.
So I need and it was literally like this person was making like $4,000 a month, and they're like, "Well, I need to be looking at like $300,000 to $400,000 a year." And I'm like, "Yeah, it's not gonna happen."
You're like,
I was like, "We need to either reconcile your position or find a way to part ways peacefully."
Yeah.
But anyways, I don't know if you ever been through that mistake. You're
100%.
You're a really great operator, but
No, dude, I've definitely made that mistake. We had so much fun. Also, what's it called? Yeah, no, we had a really talented. I mean, he's really talented. He was on the tech team. I love this guy still, dude. Like he might even be watching this. I don't know. He's amazing guy. Lives in Florida. Runs an ad agency. Just saying. But yeah, no, like same sort of thing. Like you can award with title or with comp, and a lot of times when you have a small organization, you're like, well, I can't pay him more.
You pay him with the title.
I'm gonna pay him with title.
Bad news.
Bad choice most of the time, right? If your company's growing, it's a terrible decision. You know what I mean? And we've kind of talked about like, if you're 10 people, you don't have a COO. You might have an ops manager, right? And maybe a director of operations, right? But like you climb anyhow, with that, we gave him a CTO title. Kat thought it was going to be a great idea. And we had the same exact conversation, right?
Yeah.
It was like, I think he might have been making like maybe $65,000, $60,000. And it was like, I ran the comps on Glassdoor. The slider says, and I should be making 225 to 275 on the low end.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, like, dang it, dude.
Yeah.
One maybe tiny caveat there is like a lot of times you can help those people by saying, hey, go look at the actual job. Go look at the actual job listings and the requirements.
And let's compare that to your scorecard.
Yeah. And so it's like you're getting the title, or when you give them the title, being crisp and super clear about it up front.
Yeah.
Like if you can do that, it saves you from the pain on the back end, and then also helping them understand like the difference between like they're using Glassdoor CTO slider, right? And you should take them to like go look at LinkedIn and let's look at the actual job. Like what are the jobs here in your whatever local area? And look at the requirements. And it's like 15 years of management experience, PhD, or in these 4 things. And you're like, you have 2 years of community college. So it's like,
Yeah. And also, especially it's these canned titles like CTO, COO, stuff like that, because they probably found something on PayScale or Glassdoor or whatever. But that company might have had 250 people. So it's like, the CTO of a company at the 250 person scale is way different than our company of 10 people.
Yeah. Or just managing the data at like a $100 million revenue business.
Yeah.
I mean, like the data around that versus the data that you like that needs to, and the technical infrastructure that needs to be managed at, for like CTO at like $3 million.
Yeah. So I still want to stay in this 1 to 10 million range and then do a sidebar about hiring. And I want you to tell me about IQ.
Oh, Dude, so
this is your best take.
Oh,
one of your
thanks,
best
dude.
takes.
Thanks, bro. I'm sure. I think I probably just copied this from someone else, frankly, but it's been very useful for us, right?
Yeah.
Like the question is like, hey, what's the number one indicator for success in the workplace, right? And like, I don't know, dude. I wanted to answer hard work. Like that's
Right.
like that's the correct answer. You know what I mean? Like
Ethics,
if you're
integrity. Yeah.
okay, baby. Like integrity, passion, hard work, grit. Those are all great answers.
Yeah.
Like the scientific answer, or the probably we'll say correct answer is actually IQ, which sucks. You know what I mean?
We're canceled.
Yeah, dude. It's like I know it's
We're
like
officially
oh,
canceled.
Dang it. Luckily it doesn't always apply to entrepreneurs. Praise God. Okay, that's how we snuck in. Okay. Yeah, it's IQ. So it's like if you could be either born in the 95th percentile for wealth or 95th percentile for IQ, you should choose IQ because by the time you're 40, you're like just as wealthy and you're still smart.
Yep.
Right. And so, and really IQ is your ability to solve nuanced problems. And so like a lot of people in workplaces, it's like this guy just doesn't listen or he doesn't try. And the reality is, it's like, no, like his ability to solve problems is less than yours, right? Like if you have a team, if you've got a team of, like 12 people, you'll notice that they tend to gravitate towards some one or two people on that team to ask all the questions.
Yep.
Those are probably either you're way more experienced, so they've got crystallized IQ, or they've got, fluid IQ and they can just naturally solve problems, right? And those are the people you should make managers, right? Because they can solve problems. But anyhow, so like sorting, when you are hiring, you can't give them an IQ test, but you can basically break it down and get something very close from like a cognitive assessment.
Yeah, which is how do you assess it?
Yeah, from an assessment perspective, so you got IQ kind of breaks into three main categories, right? Which is like verbal, spatial. Well, I guess maybe I'll talk to each one of them individually, but like verbal is if you're sitting with the person and you're having a conversation. You can hear verbal IQ by the syntax, the vocabulary they use, and that's going to dictate what they can understand when you say it, right? Like if you give them if you give someone on your team instructions and they just got it, like they knew what the project was, okay, that's probably high verbal IQ or more like likely to have higher verbal IQ.
Yeah.
Whereas the person that you're like, I explained it to them and they brought me something totally different, that could be a verbal IQ issue, right? Or if writing is an easy way to tell, you know what I mean? Just in general, like if you have them write a little 5-paragraph essay or something, right?
Well, what we do that's super interesting is when somebody wants to propose an initiative or something new, we have them write a memo.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like this is like the typical Jeff Bezos. I think it's Bezos.
This is also the difference between like when you're plus 10 million, right? Like all of a sudden you have to push things to writing because you need a process around the conversation. Yeah. Not just verbally. Anyhow, but yeah.
So, and I think that's from Bezos, especially because then the conversation about the new initiative, everybody reads the memos before and then everybody's on the same page and then you just like discuss what actually matters, right? Yep. But the interesting thing about it is when people write a memo, number one, if it's not that important, they won't write a memo.
Yeah.
Number two is a lot of times they'll write the memo and then they themselves will see, I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. And then they just stop writing the memo. Number three could be they write the memo and then you're like, oh, I haven't really had this on anybody on my team, but you could write a memo and then it's like, what is this?
Yeah.
Because it's a reflection of their thinking.
Yes.
Number four is you write the memo, they write the memo and you're like, damn, this is really good.
Yeah.
Right. Like this is really insightful.
Yeah. It's a reflection of their thinking.
Yes.
And you want to know how people think. You want in business, not in art, but in business, right? Some of the best thinkers are structured thinkers, right? So do they put things in categories? Do they put things in pairs? Do they use a framework, the way they think about things to solve problems, right? And obviously you can see that if they write something, you're going to see a framework. Right, it's going to start with like the agenda, like the bullet points. Structured thinkers win in business, and so if you get in, like if you're having a conversation with them and they're using fancy words, right? Like okay, that's likely higher verbal IQ. If you give them a problem to solve and they use a framework or a structure to solve it, that's likely also higher IQ. So just like things like that you can use to kind of triangulate in on.
So I would imagine that, because I'm trying to like package this in a way people can implement it in their business. I'm imagining that in the hiring process, you could, let's say, give somebody a task and then obviously their ability, because we all have those people in our organization where it's like, yeah, if I just tell it to this person, I don't have to explain it twice. Like I don't even have to write it down.
Yeah.
They just
they get
know.
it. Yeah.
Those are high IQ type of people. They have, I call it like high processing power, which is probably my political correct way of saying it. But they have that. So in the hiring process, you could assign them a task. One thing that I should probably do, I don't do this, but after you were saying it, is even maybe have them read my, company memo, which like I wrote a 34-page, like talk about a freaking memo and
Dang, dude.
writing. I wrote like a 35-page
Quality.
like what's the plan this year? What was the thinking behind all the decisions? What was the thinking behind all the decisions last year? What did we learn? What's, coming up in 5 years? Have them read that and then write a memo to the memo, challenging any of the ideas
I like
or
that.
whatever. Anything that I guess I could get them in writing.
Yeah.
I suppose.
Writing
to
and demonstrate your thinking in writing.
Yes, to see what that would be. Any other ways you could test for this stuff in
So I mean,
the interview
yeah,
process?
dude. So it's like okay. The three are verbal, spatial, and memory. And so like what I like to do is train something at the beginning. Like I might whiteboard something out. I'm gonna come back and have them train it to me at the end of the interview.
Okay.
Right. I think that like as I'm interacting with them, hearing them talk, I'm gonna gain just like an understanding of syntax, vocabulary, whatnot. That's an indicator. And then like you can use tools like we use Brick, like BRYQ, and they have a cognitive score in there as well. And so like you can use tools like that. I feel like those are very useful because I think the interview you want to focus on, get them as close to actually performing their job as possible, right? Like assurance that they're going to do the job. Like on one side, if I say like, "Are you a good media buyer?" and they say yes, I know nothing more. Like I gained freaking zero.
What were they going to say? No.
Yeah, like what were they going to say? No. It's like I gained zero. You know what I mean? Whereas if I have them buy media against one of my accounts for a week, it's like, okay, I know if they're good or not. You know what I mean? Like this is doing the job and this is totally useless. So I think in the interview, you want to get them as close to actually doing the job as possible and be looking for the words they're using, their thinking, and then memory, right? Like what I talked to them about in the first interview, were they able to draw back to that in the second interview, right? Those are all good components. Because the other thing is like you can explain something to someone, they have to understand it. That's verbal. Mm-hmm. 2, after they understand it, they have to remember it.
Store it.
Yeah, store it. 3, and then or 2, and then 3 is like where did they store it? What did they connect it to? Right? When do they reference that information? You can know a lot of things and remember a lot of things, but if you don't reference them in the appropriate times, right, to solve the right types of or to solve the particular problem at hand, then it's useless information.
Yeah.
Right? And so you kind of want to.
Yeah, well, I will say over time, and it's interesting you say this because I've gradually just with my own interviews over time, even for sales guys, because what we do is we can work with a business that might be, just starting off all the way to like, we have sometimes, I mean, it's rare, but like we'll have sales calls, maybe like one every other month with a billion or multi-billion-dollar company. Yeah. And then also it can be all sorts of different industries. And so you have to have a high business acumen and like problem-solving ability.
Yep.
Because I can train you on sales.
Yeah.
I can't necessarily train you on like how to find the constraint in a $1 billion company's sales process versus a $100 million company versus a company doing $20K a month.
Yeah.
And then also versus solar versus this industry versus that industry. So it's interesting. One of my hires recently that worked out really well, he had like no experience. I just was like, fuck, this guy's so smart. I just was like, this guy's really smart. Yep. And I knew from his previous position, I was like, man, like that was more complex than this. And he learned it. Yep. So I was like, I think he has a high rate of learning. So he didn't really fall into my normal criteria of a sales guy. Yeah. But I hired him and he was great. He was one of our best hires.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how, kosher some of this is, but like if you look at people's like where they're at in their life and when their motivations are going to be highest, that's one. And then 2, like when they are most driven to solve problems, and if they're in that portion of their life, you know what I mean, which is different portions for different people. You know, like you got to kind of dig that out and figure out, do they have a natural motivation now? Like most young guys coming out of college or whatever that are like just getting started, they're going to be pretty highly motivated, right? Yeah. You also see a lot of people like they just went through a big life event, you know what I mean, and now they're really motivated, right? Yep. And so I think that if you can catch onto that with also high cognitive ability. Like they're gonna be super driven, high cog. That person's is gonna be a rocket ship for. Yeah,
and you also think with the life events thing, because I've noticed in some roles we do want people who are like they're trying to push to like whatever their definition of career greatness is for them, right? Yep. In other roles, it's better for us sometimes in certain roles to hire for more of the stability. Like like there's a specific role I'm thinking about where I know if they're like, yeah, I used to be doing this and trying to achieve these things or running my own business, but now like I have 2 kids at home and we just bought a house and this and that, and like I'm looking for something like secure. Yep. Like that's almost better for like this role over here. Totally. Do you guys think the same way about that?
100%. Yeah. Like I mean, bang on, dude. So like it's okay if you're a young person watching this and you're like, why do I work for all these idiots? I'm smarter than all of them, right? It's like, all right, check it out. It's like there's 2 things that if you own the company, you're thinking about 2 things. You're thinking about skill, like they have to be able to do the job and do it well. But then you're thinking about stability, right? Because you've had the experience where one of your sales directors tried to freaking unionize your sales team.
Yeah,
Some
yeah.
bull crap, right? Like you've had the experience where, someone that was absolutely key leveraged the crap out of you and said, like, I'm going to bounce, because like they were skilled, but they weren't stable, right? And so like when you're looking for like leaders in a hierarchy, it's like, okay, if you're one individual sales rep and you have a bad day, okay, maybe you impact a couple clients. If you're a sales manager and you have a bad day, right? Like you say something cynical, like something unprofessional, immature, you're unstable in some way. You disrupt, okay, well, all 12 of your sales reps, right? That sales manager disrupts. If you're a sales director, you disrupt your 4 managers and all of their teams, right? And so like as you climb the hierarchy, the risk profile, like you need to be skilled, but the risk profile to the company is almost worse if you're skilled but not stable. You'd almost, not totally, but you'd almost rather have someone stable with no skills, right?
Yeah.
And so like, because that's a more valuable thing to the company, like loyalty, stability, consistency, maturity, professionalism. Like those are the type of people, like if I get to choose who's reporting to me, like I want them to be skilled, but I want all those other things.
Yeah.
Like I don't want the person that I'm like, what happened? Like, and now I got to go try to, fix this whole portion of the organization.
Right, and that's because too, if like let's say your director who has 2 managers or something under them, and then let's say 24 people, if they are unstable or emotional is probably
emotional is a good word.
Is a good word for people to like grasp this.
Yeah,
and they come off of an executive meeting and they're fucking pissed at you because you decline their idea, or like they're coming off of a one-on-one and they didn't do as well in their performance review as they thought they were going to do, and they're not going to get a pay raise. And then they say something about like, oh, well, this fucking company, they don't like to pay anybody.
Yeah.
You got like, now that liability is 24x.
Exactly.
Opposed to just the salesperson doing it. So
exactly.
you have to have, and I think about a lot of our managers too. I'm like, they're remarkably, I never thought about it this way until I heard you say it, but they're remarkably like stable people.
Yeah.
They're like, they can handle the ups and downs and the stress. Like they're not freaking out.
Yeah. And I think that's like when you scale, like the reason why a lot of entrepreneurs sabotage, like they might have a company that could scale, but they kind of either sabotage themselves or like, this sucks, or I don't like managing people. You see a chunk of people that built a strong company and then they're like, realize I just don't want to manage anyone.
That's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's because they had skilled people but not stable people in their org. And so like they had no solid footing, you know what I mean? Like to no one to rely on in their in their org. And so to them, everything was always fluid and a pain in the butt and like, oh my gosh. Some of that though too is like some of those people have their own emotional instability that they cascade into the org.
Well, I would say that is at least 50%.
At least 50,
at least some of the people I know.
Yeah.
Cool. What was next? Oh, yes. I wanted to ask about, so IQ, any other personality or hiring tips, hacks, whatever that you know of? Because this is your zone of genius.
Well, thank you, dude. I mean, obviously, it's like if you're lining them up, it's IQ, trait conscientiousness, which is proclivity to work hard, like natural drive. Mm-hmm. So like if like they can't but go do something on Saturday. Yeah. I mean, if you're like, what did you do on Saturday? Like, I just relaxed, watched TV. I'm like, that's cool. Like, but that's not your killer. That's not the person that has to be doing something. That's going to be excited about the project that takes all weekend, but is worth it. You know what I mean? It's like, we accomplished something super cool. We worked so hard and we accomplished something super cool, right? Like, you want those types of people. And so, like, when was the last time you took a work text outside of work, right? Like, what was that about? Like, try to figure out, do they naturally like and enjoy working? Are they wanting to be on all the time, right? Like that's a proclivity to work hard, trait conscientiousness, that drives success, right? That really is your grit. That's the second thing. What is it? IQ's like 24 to 35% of the variance in performance. And then the next one, which is this trait conscientiousness, like proclivity to work hard is something like, somewhere between 9 and 20%.
So work hard's got a little bit.
Work hard.
We got 10% there.
We're showing up. Dude.
We got 10%.
We're showing up. We're on the board.
So outside of that, what else is important?
Then I flipped to like culture fit, dude. So like I want to know, because I want to gauge for stability. Like now I know they're smart, right? Now I know they're smart, that they want to work hard. I want to gauge for stability, right? And obviously some of these positions I'm looking for like crystallized experience, like they have the know-how already, but like are they a culture fit? And so then it's asking questions that aren't like, you got to be a little bit smarter, dude. We talk about you got to be a little bit smarter than try to be a little bit smarter than whoever you're interviewing. And you should be able to do that because you can think about your questions forever and they just have to answer them on the spot. Right. Yeah. So like, if you're going to ask a culture, like a question, ask a question like one question I like asking is like, who's your favorite person you've ever worked for? and then why. And I try to get like the exact story on why. And then I ask them counter questions like, who's your least favorite person you ever worked for? And then they're like, oh, Tiffany, because she was, she didn't believe in me or whatever. Like, oh, like when did you tell me the story? Like, when did you like realize that Tiffany didn't believe in you? And, they're like, well, I had this report and it was a really good idea. You know what I mean? And I was just out of college and it was like a really good idea. And so I went and I put it on her desk and I was like, this is a report. I want you to read it. I think it's a really good idea. And she was like really happy. She was like, okay, awesome. Thanks. Like we can, I'll totally do this. But then she just never came back to me. And I knew it was because she just thought I was too young. And so she didn't respect my ideas. And I'm like, okay, so what you did was she didn't get back to you about the report. That's something that happened. And what you made that mean was that she didn't respect, like you made that mean your insecurity, which is that you're young, right? I was like, okay, that one's not terrible if now you're older and you don't have that same insecurity. You probably won't read it that way. But I can guarantee you, I, as a boss, am going to accidentally forget some of your reports. Or you're like, some of your good ideas, I'm not going to probably respond to on accident, right?
Yeah.
And so like it gives you, you get to kind of step outside and get a separate read on how they think.
Yeah.
Or if they're like, oh, this person, was always, she was super negative all the time and she did blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, like when did you experience that? Like, tell me. I was like, well, she would always kiss up to the boss and always do blah, blah, blah. Like you want the specific example, and then you want to see if the specific example actually would mean what they're making it mean, right?
Yeah.
And then if those are too far off, you can't manage that person well. So like stuff like that, I use that as like a culture fit indicator for us. But you want to come up with clever questions that give you that, a way to triangulate how they might actually be.
Yeah, and let me know if I'm on the right track, because this is what I do, is I think about the skills that I want to hire for, and not just skills, but also, like you said, like traits, like work ethic, IQ, whatever. And then I try to ask questions, but the way I make them answer, the phrase is, tell me about a specific story when.
Yeah, there you go.
And what I try to do is get away from, because I'll be like, the classic is, tell me about a specific story where you had to give a Herculean sales effort to get this deal across the line. Yeah. Like it was a crazy deal. You had to go above and beyond. Tell me about a story like that. Like I want to know everything about it, end to end, like what happened. Yeah. So you end with what happened. And what's interesting is a lot of times they'll be like, well, generally, sometimes they'll even say generally, or they'll say, well, when I'm really trying to get a deal across the line, and then they just talk in generalities.
Yeah, totally.
And I'm like, well, I want to know a specific story.
Think of one.
Yeah, because like the one I always would tell is like this one where I had these like 3 sisters on the phone with this breastfeeding offer, and then they started crying and I started crying, and all of a sudden their mom was on the phone. I was talking to their mom. I had to sell their mom, and it was it was just a crazy story. But anyways, like any good salesperson has that like war story.
Yeah.
Like where you had to.
It's not a general. It's
you get the wife on the phone, and then all of a sudden, the wife's like bitching you out, and then she's bitching him out. This is a real story I had when I sold real estate agents. She was bitching me out, and then turns and starts bitching the guy out for being on the call. And I remember I was actually a noob back in these days. And this was back when, like, we were able through Ring Central's, we were able to essentially, somebody could listen in as the call was going on. Yeah. So, like, my manager was giving me these, like, slacks and things to say.
Whisper things
and we legit turned it around. It was nuts.
That's awesome,
it was nuts.
dude.
But you see how it's like a specific story.
Yes.
So that's kind of what you're going for there.
That's super good, yeah. And that's like akin to, kind of like Elon's saying, right? Which is like, if they actually did it, then they should know the details. Like if they were a big part of the win, they should know the actual details.
Because on your resume, you can say, was a part of insert thing company achieved that you had no real part in.
Yeah, no real part of. Yeah.
Was aligned with us getting the company to $30 million a year front end revenue. And it's like, you were like an ops person.
Yeah, like how did you do that?
You didn't even contribute with that at all.
Exactly.
Before we go to 20 to 30 mil, any other like good zinger interview questions you really like?
Oh, dude, I think that good zinger interview questions. I mean, one I ask is like, where do you get your moral compass or code from? Like,
oh wow, that's good.
I like that just because I want to understand. Like, I want to understand what they ground themselves to, because that's what I'll be able to ground them to. You know what I mean? One, and then also that's the paradigm that they think about: is this moral or not? And so I feel like that's helpful. Good answers there could be like one, either their faith, or it could be like my parents, right? And then I want to know what are some of the tenets of that moral code, moral compass that they think about. What I don't like to hear is like, it's just like I feel. I'm like, I don't know. Like feel is bad. Don't start with feel. You know what I mean? But like, well, I think I just know what's right and what's wrong, or like I just feel that this You know, like I'll know if it's a good thing or not, you know, like, or something like that. Like that's obviously a weaker answer for me, but like that's helpful. It's insightful. I'm sure. I think the biggest thing is like instead of asking a tremendous amount of questions, get them to do the job. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
I agree.
Get them to do the job. That's like how get them to do the job is really how you figure out.
Show their work and show their thinking.
Yeah, show their work and show your thinking.
That's good. That's good. Okay, so going from 10 to 20 to 30, what do you think are the keys there? And now, since, you know, I know in Astro and Sub 2, you guys were like 10 just overnight. But now, this is probably the phase where you guys even had to grind a little bit to get there, right? So even for you guys, what was kind of the big keys and big differentiators?
I mean, data integrity, dude. Like a big one. I mean, obviously, you start to build out. So at this point, you can afford, like, you know, you're paying people enough. You get to keep your winners. You can pay enough to keep them. Praise God. They're taking off meaningful work. You're starting to find the right stable components so that your org feels pretty solid. Like now it's, okay, now you got to implement task management, but actually do it well. And you got to implement like some data infrastructure because otherwise everyone's got a different dashboard. You got like 18 freaking dashboards. They're like, all right, what did we sell last week? And finance is like, we sold this. And then sales is like, no, like we sold this. And marketing's like, I'm not tracking through. And you're like, what the frick is going on? You know, like
we have one metric in our company. I'm not going to say what it is, but if they're watching, they will know. We cannot come to a fucking consensus on this metric. It's like, and it's kind of important. And it's like, we can never get it within 20K. You know, it's like finance says one thing, backend says another thing, ops says one thing. And it's like, what is the fucking number?
What's the number, like, dude?
What is the number? We need to know what the number is. But go on,
so
continue.
so that's data integrity and data infrastructure, right? And structuring that correctly. And you need, like at that point, you need to invest in someone really smart and talented, like that's got a PhD, right? That can come in and that's been there already, that's seen what it looks like, and can help you make the cake, right? And so from a data integrity standpoint, I think so that's one of the biggest ones because otherwise you're gonna be in pain all the time. Everyone's always gonna freaking complain. Your dashboards are never gonna be quite right, and you're gonna try to drive based on intuition instead of data.
Yeah, it's so true.
That if you're driving on intuition, trying to go from 30 to 60 to 100, like at some point you're gonna be making too many incorrect decisions.
Well, you don't know what the constraint is.
Yeah.
So, you know, what's the interesting thing, when I do one-on-one calls with our boardroom clients, which are generally people from 100K to, let's say, 30 mil or 50 mil, I don't even have the call if they don't bring their data. And then sometimes we find out the action item is go fix your data.
Yeah.
Because, like, if you can't even bring the data, well, then we already know what the constraint is the data.
Yeah.
So, like, by the very nature of you not being able to bring that, then we know what the problem is. Because I can't tell you what to do if I don't see it. And if you don't have it, then how would you even know what to do?
Yeah, and most of the time it's like the reason why they don't know what to do is because they don't have the data. Like most of the time, if they've gotten to that level, they're actually pretty freaking smart. Not always. That's not always true. Because they don't know what data to look at or whatever, blah, blah, blah. But like, yes, I think data is hugely important. And then the next is like task management. So like it used to be a bunch of things that people, task management, onboarding, playbooks. Yeah. Right? Like all of that really starts to come into play. Because now you're at a level where if someone, like you need to get out of the level where if someone quits, you're like, shoot, that was an important person. We're 6 months, like we moved back 6 months, you know? Like, you got to get away from that. And so, and there's ways that you can control for that. But I think like good task management, good project management throughout where you've got board, like, okay, it's this type of a project we're running. We've got a board for that, right? And like track your tasks. Like tasks should grow over time as your organization adopts the task management. Make sure all functions are in there. This gives you visibility as a leader to be able to say, what's marketing working on today?
Right.
Right? Like you shouldn't have to call everyone to be like, what are you working on every day? Yeah. Instead, you should be able to see it in the system. So like you're moving into that level because you need visibility into what people are working on in your organization. And are they even working if it's a remote org? So that's one. Yeah. And then the other side is like good data. So now you can drive and you can see where people are too busy and where people aren't busy enough. And if you can, like, so if you got those two, and then maybe you add to that, like, now you're starting to build out like a more, maybe this is a little advanced, maybe this is the next step, but now you're starting to build out more of like an advanced budgeting process, right? Like you need baked in, budgeting is all about correct assumptions. It's like good books. You know what I mean? Like I think at this point, right around this point, you probably like need to start getting your first audit, done. Not for the IRS or anything goofy like that, but like your own internal, like you need an audit for yourself, right? You're also going to run into, there's a bunch of reasons why you should get an audit. Like it's going to show you a lot about your finance and accounting team at this point. But anyhow, those are just there's plenty of stuff to do in that stage, right? But most of it is operationalizing your business.
Yep. So, and then if we, so you talked a lot about the ops. Is there anything growth wise as marketing sales you see from, let's say, 10 to 30?
Yeah. So, I mean, you're probably launching, so you're monitoring everything. Sometimes, like if you really hit, if you really struck gold and it's like your product is just continuing to scale, you know what I mean? And you're hiring out content and hiring out, or like people generating front end marketing type stuff.
Yeah, when you're saying content, I mean, you're meaning organic content, I'm assuming, but also a lot of creative.
Yeah, a lot of creative.
I think you were calling that content.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, altogether. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's probably better.
Okay.
Good clarification. Yeah, right. So like you need ads, content, nurture assets, conversion assets. You're expanding all of those kind of in tandem, right? As you're continuing to grow. So I think like most of that scales, and you're going to figure out where your depth is in your first product line, right?
Yeah.
And now you've got probably an owned audience. Depends on how big that audience is.
Yeah.
Depends on if you're B2B or B2C, right? But now you're looking at like, okay, can I sell them other things? You know what I mean? Like, can I get some expansion on this? Do I have any network effects or marketplace effects that I could build into?
Right.
Is there anything that I can attach to my current owned audience that increases LTV? Is there software I can sell them? Can I bring in affiliate partnerships? So like you're looking more at that, like can I have deeper penetration in the customers that I currently have? And so you're starting to build out those things. And then, and hopefully as your core business just continues to scale, as you scale everything in tandem like a machine should, right? So if that's happening, beautiful. If you're like, well, I want to go after extra growth, or you find that, hey, I hit a little bit of a plateau, you know what I mean? Like which frankly, if it's a good product, I mean, it depends on how niche the product is. But that's probably not a TAM issue, right? Like you probably have plenty of white space you could grow into and go have a right to win in. But like if you do and you start to slow down, like, okay, well maybe there's another vertical that's adjacent that uses a lot of the same mechanisms that you can roll out, you know what I mean, like alongside it. And I think that you're doing all of that. But at the same time, sometimes people like in order to get from 30 to 100, what they do, like if you're is like just turn on a totally different front end marketing way to reach their customers.
Yeah, let's circle back to that in a second. Before we move on to 30 to 100, so back to ops side, a lot of people struggle with getting good C-level managers. And when I say C-level managers, I mean, because you're more sophisticated with the titles than I am. I'm like, I kind of just call it whatever. But
I mean, you knew content creative, so
yeah, there we go. But a lot of people, especially at this level, I see they struggle with, okay, having a good sales director, head of sales, or whatever you want to title that, CMO, good, whoever's leading over ops, good CFO for finance, et cetera, like that core leadership team.
Yep.
So what's been the biggest, because this is another area I think you're really, really good. How do you hire? How long does it take to train those people? What's realistic expectations there? Like, what's kind of your system for that?
That's a good question, man. I think that at that point you're hiring, like if you're hiring a CFO, you're hiring for experience.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I
Like
agree.
you need a pro that's got probably audit experience, hopefully has some experience with maybe a big five, maybe he's gone through a couple transactions, something like that.
Yeah.
Like you're hiring for experience, like cognitive ability, right? Obviously, but very heavily for
especially CFO, because it's a role that, even if, I mean, there is differences per business, but largely a good CFO should be able to drop into almost any business, unless it's like something like, your business is a Brad Jacobs style crazy like M&A thing, and they did this other thing that was not that at all. I mean, there's differences, but I would feel like, whereas like a sales director, for instance, that can be, if you're enterprise, very different than if you do more style like transactional sales like we do.
Yeah.
Like that's almost a totally different management and
Yeah.
skill set type of thing. I don't know if you'd agree.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I mean, and then one thing, I don't know how this is in the weeds, but it's kind of it's something I didn't know. Like someone had to freaking explain this to me. But like when you're hiring, so back on the CFO thing, but like when you're hiring a CFO, you've got accounting. Like you have some people that focus more on accounting, which is what's happened in the past, and then some people that have focused more on finance, which is what's happening in the future.
Good
like
distinction.
FP&A, right? And so your CFO needs to have prowess in both of those areas. Like you want them to have done some forecasting, budgeting, finance, like that type of stuff, which is finance, forward looking, and have a very strong, pedigree on the accounting side, right? And so like I don't know. So like there's little details like that. But your question around specifically
How to find so we talked about CFO, but the other C levels. So like obviously
Other
as a
C-suites.
CFO, you're hiring for experience. What about like CMO? That's a tough one.
CMO 's
Sales
hard,
director,
yeah.
that's a tough one.
CMO, honestly, I mean, so this is very business specific at this point. You know what I mean? And like, I mean, one thing to look at is like people. Bear with me on this, okay? Maybe. All right, I'm gonna throw it out there. We'll see how it goes. But like people peak in their, you know, okay, so like cognitive function tends to start declining somewhere between like 55 and 60 or something like that, right? There's kind of this turning point where your fluid intelligence declines, but your crystallized intelligence continues to advance. Right? And so you tend to be the best executive with the most crystallized knowledge, like the ability to recognize patterns. So if you think about like an amateur chess player, they can recognize like whatever it is, like, I don't know, 600 patterns or something like that when they're playing chess.
Yeah.
Whereas like a master can like has memorized 340,000 patterns or something ridiculous, right? And it's because they've seen it, so they've already been there. They know exactly how it could go. They can see all the nuances. All right, that's why, like, you know, if you're 60 plus, those are like some of your best board members, right? Because they've seen a lot of stuff.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like they can give you really good experience, like experience-driven insights, crystallized knowledge. Where you kind of have and then, you know, your fluid intelligence is the highest when you're probably like in your 20s.
Right.
And that's why you can pick up on a lot of things, right? Well, you're probably the best executive somewhere between, obviously, this is not freaking, don't go higher off of this or whatever, and then give me an
just
HR
rule of thumb.
But rule of thumb, like your best executive is somewhere between like late 30s through their 50s. You know what I mean? Because they've got still a lot of fluid intelligence. Like they haven't felt that decline. And they've got all this pattern recognition and ability to understand, you know, what's going on. Like what you're looking for is like a combination of like entrepreneurial ability to invent and to go create new things, still solve nuanced problems, but then institutional understanding because they need to know what you're building towards. Like you're not hiring a CMO so that they can keep your business at the same level.
Right.
You're hiring the CMO that knows what the business should look like at the next level so that they can take you there.
Yep.
And as far as hiring for those positions, like generally, I mean, if you're at, let's say you're at 30 million, you might have one talent act person, right, on your team, but you should go hire a recruiting firm for these specialized positions that know how to speak the language, that already have the relationships, already have the connections, right? And they'll bridge the gap. Because like you're going to come in and not know anything. Like when I was hiring my first, you know, CFO type person, I was like, I didn't know. I mean, I took some accounting and finance classes in college, but like I didn't know. Like I wouldn't have been able to hire that person.
Yeah.
And then the same thing is like what most entrepreneurs do when they hire their CMO is they hire someone that's a good marketer but doesn't know anything about institutionalized structure or operationalized structure. So like they hire the person that's good for their business right now, but has no idea how to build in stable managers, right? And manage an organization underneath them. They're just a good marketer. You know what I mean? And so like a lot of people are like, this guy's a wicked, he's an ace copywriter and he's so freaking smart.
Yeah.
And like he's a CMO. And it's like, does he know how to freaking build managers and directors? Because
No.
that's his actual job.
Because there's like a workflow that goes along too. It's very tough to have both of those in one position.
Yes.
If you're looking for a mastermind to take your business to 10 million a year plus, then you want to check out our 8-figure border mastermind. So after doing 100 million in total cash collected for my own companies, I've created a mastermind where I really pull back the curtain and show you exactly how I've done it. So I not only share with you what's working for us across marketing, sales, fulfillment, operations, finance for all of our different companies. At the same time, you can network with some of the top people in the industry and also listen to world-class speakers like Patrick Bet-David, Dean Graziosi, Neil Patel, Tom Bailu, and many, many others. So if you're interested, check out the link in the description and get more info. One thing that I've heard, I'm curious your thoughts on this, is it like what you said with the CFO. It's very tough if you are not a good CFO yourself, right? Like you took some accounting classes to know who it is. What do you think about, like the way I think about it is you just need to find one of your friends or something who has the CFO that you wish you had. And then you're like, okay, that's kind of like talk to that person, get an idea. Okay, this is kind of what I want. And then also just see if you could just pay them to do a second interview with the candidate.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
That's super great.
That's good.
I think one thing, it's a great idea.
Okay. And so 30 to 100, what do you think? And I'm curious more again on, you know, especially like in a single business like Sub2 who was there, right? Like what were the big things in growth that helped it hit that level? Because that's a level that very few people in our industry have hit, right?
Thanks, dude. I think the biggest thing that we had is we started to have really like this network effect on the back end where we received plus up just from referrals. You know what I mean? So like that really helped us. You know, and as the community expanded, we saw more and more referral motion, and so that boosts all of our marketing metrics and everything else. And so, like, I think that helped. And I mean, we're continuing to grow in Sub2. You know what I mean? So, like, we haven't We haven't hit a
even peaked.
Yeah.
You haven't hit your TAM yet, dude?
No, dude. We haven't, not even close, baby. Let's go.
Don't need to start another business.
Yeah, dude. So like, so I think that we've got a lot of, trajectory with it. But the biggest thing there is like building to the model. You know what I mean? Like we need more content, more creative. And we need to make sure that we don't fall off on fulfillment. You know what I mean? And so one thing that's really nice is like that, Sub 2 is built so that you make like everyone on the back end interacts, and the community aspect drives ROI for the members. And so as it gets bigger, it's more of a moat, but it's also more benefit to everyone in the community. So like that type of a business naturally spins up, you know what I mean? And like accelerates. So in some ways it depends on, what type of business you're talking about. So in some ways that's like an unfair comp.
What's interesting is I think in our industry, what you guys and Pace have done with Sub 2 is really one of the only examples of, I'm not saying you have like a network effect like Facebook, but I would say that every additional member to the community makes the community more valuable, which is the definition of network effects, which I've not really seen replicated anywhere else, And I'm also curious, so working with Pace, like he is a community beast.
Yeah, dude.
I've just never seen anybody like it. And in fact, like he's so good to where I even told him, and I don't think he wanted to at all, but I was like, dude, if you ever ran for politics, like you'd probably freaking win.
Yeah,
it's like you're like, I was like, because when he did that tour, and he was meeting everybody from his community, which in within itself is badass. I was like, the guy's going on campaign.
I'm
like, man, maybe, should I donate to this guy's? I'm like, I'm not going to donate to any politicians, but Pace Morby, I would donate.
I would donate, dude. 100%.
But what is the biggest lessons you've learned from him? And just seeing how he's operating, because you guys are such a good team.
Thank you, dude. One of the things I think is incredible about Pace is like his care for every member, dude. Like he cares so much. Yeah. And is always focused on the product, right? Like he's always focused on this community aspect, building it in, and is relentless in his desire to help people. You know what I mean? So like like I want to help people. I want to see people be successful.
Do you think how much of that is like something genetic with him versus, because I'm the same way. Like I want to help people, but I have like I have like a energy bar that gets depleted. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And it feels like his is just like, just overflows or something. Yeah, I'm like curious how much of that you think is like learned versus just who he is. And if people don't know who haven't like experienced it, it is truly remarkable what he does with community and how much, as he calls it, loves on people. You know?
Yeah, Pace is awesome. I think that Pace is naturally very extroverted, and so I think that aids him in a sense in the because he likes to communicate and he gets energy from communicating. But I think the other thing too, though, is really like sheer willpower, dude. Like I think is the sheer willpower. Like he will go and do plow through walls to see people be successful. And I think that he's exceptional, at it now, and has been for a very long time. But he also like honed that. Like, so I think he had a natural gifting to begin, but then he really worked on it and really honed it. You know what I mean? And really, really built it up to be able to, and just a natural ability to remember names and faces, and not just a natural ability, but then a discipline on top of that.
Yeah,
it's like if you compound natural talent and gifting with discipline and diligence, you get a phenomenal outcome. And I think that's like been, like. Pace's heart is to see people do well, and so it just
yeah. I'm curious. So to get to, because I've gotten between when I had 3 companies at once, run rate wise, we got close at a certain point to an 100 run rate, but we kind of consolidated back down to one company before I was able to realize that from a yearly standpoint. How much though from getting to, let's say, 30 to 100?
Did you like squeak up to like 99? Then you're like, dang it.
No. Well, I probably told you the whole story, but we had 3 companies. One was a medical company. Then I had my 2 sales companies. That was so much work, and the medical company was growing so fast that the B2C sales company, we were kind of just like, let's take that. And this is what we really did. We were like, and B2C was tough, like, especially with like the whole K-shaped economy. Like if you're running a call funnel, the consumers who are buying, number one, it's like they were just not financially there. And then you're in this position of like, should you even be selling these people? Like, you can help them, but you're like, it's like, I don't really want to take anybody's last dollar. So we actually absorbed that whole company into the medical company and started another division within the medical company that hit $1 million a month within 60 days.
Wow.
Right. So that was the strategic calculus, which brought us down to 2. Because my theory was like 3 was too hard, but I had done 2 for a while.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, I guess I can do 2.
Yep.
And then for different reasons, it's a long story. I ended up leaving the medical company, and it's still around, but I just was like, I'm just going to focus on the one company. So anyways, but yeah, at the peak when I had all 3, our best month was like 7.1 million, like actual cash collected.
Nice.
Right?
Dude.
Not even revenue contracted, whatever. It's like actual cash.
Nice.
But then I came back down to 30 when I just went to 1. You know, so I forgot why we even got on that tangent. But yes, because my question was, how much do you think, let's say 30 to 100, is, the offer, or the marketing, or something they're doing with acquisition versus certain things with operations? And the reason I ask is, especially with a lot of the people I know in the industry and stuff, most people will gravitate towards, it's just the offer.
Yeah.
Or, it's just the marketing, which, I mean, I'm sure that's got to be a part of it. But I'm curious what you think, just from having actually done it and seen it.
Well, I think, honestly, like, if your product, and if you're diligent about maintaining the product quality, and you went from 0 to 30 million, you can go to 100. You know what I mean? Like, bear with me on this. But, like, I think that's pretty much fundamentally true. But you're going to have a bunch of things that will absolutely break unless you build in the infrastructure for them. So, like, our biggest thing wasn't, like, reinvent stuff to get, like, once you're past 30, it's not go reinvent stuff at that point. It's really, like, is your infrastructure there? Is your data clean? Is your, like, do you have good higher level directors and talent that can build the organization from, like, a thoughtful, sophisticated way? Like, that really was the difference between driving between 30 to up to 100. I think that you see a lot of entrepreneurs. I mean, I've been this person. You see a lot of entrepreneurs that get to about 30, and then their toolbox is out. You know what I mean? Like, they don't have the next toolkit, and so they're, like, trying to tinker around with, like, these little. Bear with me on this, but, like, you're using a fake screwdriver trying to, like, fix an engine or whatever. You just don't have the right. Yeah. You don't have the right tools, and so you're trying to get from 30, and so it's like, well, then we went up a little, then we went down a little, then we went up a little, then we went down a little, and it makes you draw false conclusions to be like, well, it's the market can't bear anymore or whatever, right? And so I think that there's a component of luck and product. Like, your product, like, we've got a really strong product, and so there's a natural growth, and we could really probably we've screwed tons of things up and still grown. You know what I mean? So is that a boon to your success and an outsized advantage? Like, having a strong product that people naturally love, that really is found that kind of lightning in a bottle, or like magic product market fit. Yeah, of course. So, like, I think that there's that aspect to it, but I think if you're stuck around like 30 million, you're like, shoot, I can't get to the next level. It's probably a toolkit thing. You know what I mean? Like, if you've already demonstrated that you can sell 30 million, you probably
can sell more.
You can probably sell more.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, so it's probably a toolkit thing.
And how fast did you think you got from 30 to 100, if you had to just estimate for that brand?
I mean, our growth rate, from like a CAGR perspective, like, we try to, like our peg is kind of like, once you get to maybe north of 10, 15, 20, like, if you can have a 30 plus CAGR, you know what I mean, where you're growing 30%, I think that's pretty stable. It's probably about where we've been.
Yeah. So what would that be? Is that?
It's like a 30% growth annually.
Okay, so that would be what's?
No, we grew faster than that, actually, I think.
That's what I thought.
Shoot, I don't know.
I was going to say, probably took, 3 years, 5 years?
Yeah, I think that might be, if I'm looking at.
Launched in
I think about, like,
2021.
from a portfolio standpoint, we've got Keyglee and then New Reach and then a bunch of other stuff. And so, so, like, across that, we're at about 30%. But I don't know what the specifics would be for sub 2 off the top of my head.
Because with us, we can get to the front-end acquisition number. I mean, I'll tell you this. We can increase our front-end acquisition. We'll increase it probably what's 200 divided by 125? That would probably be like 50%?
About 50%.
Something like that. We'll get there on the front end in like a couple of months. You know, like we can accelerate that front end growth quickly. Yeah. But our company is mainly like, what we're really good at is realizing and retaining back end revenue for like years. Yep. You know, as like a B2B service, et cetera. Yep. So we'll increase that front end volume. That will increase the top line and some of the profit. But where a lot of the top line and profit increase will come from is it'll take, from my estimate, probably a full 18 to 2 years to really actually realize, like, let's say a sustained 50% increase in front end volume.
Yep.
You know, so I'm on kind of this 2-year track to
Nice.
60, basically.
That's pretty. I mean, hey, dude, it's good. It's a good thing.
I guess 2 years to 60 is not bad. That's
Not
a good
bad at
growth
all,
rate.
bro. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not bad.
That's killer, dude.
And it's profitable too. So, you know, we try to, you know, it's top line is cool, but you know, it's like you can't deposit your top line at Chase. So
Yeah, totally.
I try to keep the profit healthy, and that's, you know, for any reason if the market goes down or you have, especially when you're a big company, if you're running like low margins and you have a 20% decrease in top line because something happens with the economy or Iran or whatever it is, I mean, your profit can go real quick.
Yeah.
You know, if the margin's not that high.
Yeah. But I think, I mean, that's one thing that I always thought was interesting is like people buy businesses that are losing money, right, but have revenue, right? Because revenue in and of itself is valuable. And a lot of times, you know, like if you're a skilled operator with the right tool belt, you can come in and be like, oh, you know, this business is driving $70 million in revenue and losing $6 million a year. It's like, what an opportunity. You know, And so, like, I think.
Well, that's true.
Yeah. But that's great growth, dude. Heck yeah.
Well, thank you, man. So, model question. So, we have different models. I have the one company trying to go as hard in one company as possible kind of model.
Yep.
You have a bunch of brands,
Yep.
right? I'm curious, what do you think are the pros and cons of, let's say, one company versus what you're doing? Mm-hmm. And we'll just start there. Like, what do you think of the pros and cons?
Well, I think that you can run multiple brands under like one united, you know, kind of leadership thing. And so, like, I think there's a benefit to that. Whereas, like, you know, we've got a handful of companies outside of, it's like New Reach has multiple brands. But then I've also got Calendly, which has, you know, franchise network and, you know, over its corporate stores and whatnot and you know, movable type and, you know, a handful of other ventures. And I think that brands under a unified management system, way easier. You know what I mean? Because you get synergies, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas if you're two separate companies, two separate management teams, there's different types of benefits from like a focus perspective.
Yeah.
Right? And it's really like, so I think it's more of, you know, on an individual basis, you're trying to choose, should these be run together so we get synergies across, or should this be more like run it separately? It supports its own management team. It needs its own, it deserves its own focus, right? Because we can scale to a certain level. What I think is the worst is when you don't have a clear cut, right? Like it's not one of those two, or you start to build in different types of, like drastically different types of businesses that don't make sense within the thesis of the original company. You know what I mean? Like sometimes, for instance, like if you guys added a technology layer, that might make a lot of sense and drive some recurring revenue and be really cool for your current existing base. And so like that aligns. But if it's like you want to go start car washes, it's like, well,
it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, but you're like, but my operator is really strong, and I'm going to have him help me on this on the side. It's like, no.
So when you have these brands, you are bringing them in thinking there's expansion revenue opportunities, so to speak.
Yeah, or,
like one
or
brand,
synergies. Like they're all running a similar playbook, like similar playbooks, right?
Okay.
Like,
yeah, so there could be shared knowledge, et cetera.
Yeah.
But think about somebody, let's say, who's like, you know, they're thinking about maybe doing a portfolio model versus maybe they have this one opportunity that they could just go all in and try to scale that as big as possible, right? Like, how would you say the pros and cons are between?
They should go all in on one if that's like if they don't have like family office money, you know what I mean, or whatever, or they're not going to place executives in each, but they're going to come in and be the executive, then you should go all in on one, right?
Yeah, okay.
And if you build that to a level where you've got like, so we built Calendly up for 2 years. I was the CEO there, and then I did the same thing that you kind of did. I started New Reach, and I was the CEO at Calendly and at New Reach for a while. But the reality is like Calendly had a strong enough leadership team at that point that I could do that. Right. And really strong partners too. So like that was but I had to focus. If I had tried to launch both at the same time, that would have been so stupid. You know, like, so it's hard to run one company well. And generally speaking, if you're going to try, like from the get-go, if you're choosing which one to do, focus on one. If you already have a really strong leadership team in on one, and maybe you backfill yourself as the CEO and start another, great. You got a portfolio company, you backfilled yourself as a CEO, that can work really well.
Yeah. How do you note, though, like, it's like when to allocate your resources between doing, let's say, like kicking up the new thing versus just, okay, I'm just going to focus more on this, you know? Like, let's say you're at a point where you could go portfolio. Maybe you're at $15 million a year with one company. Your leadership team's really strong.
Yeah.
Okay. How do you know you're like, okay, I'm pretty leveraged out of this. I could start this second thing or put in a CEO and start this second thing, or I could just stay CEO and just drive this further. Is there like a calculation?
Yeah, dude.
You can
I think
make there
100%. And I think it's also like, okay, what's my end goal with this company? I got 15 million. Let's say it's 15 million bucks. I'm doing 4 million in EBITDA. I'm like, okay. So if I've got that and I haven't sold a company yet, I don't have a nest egg of finances, right? It might make a lot of sense for me to go sell that. You know, I don't know what I'm gonna get. I don't know what type of company it is, but let's say I can get an 8x multiple on my 4 million, right? And so, whatever the heck that is, we need Nolan. Dude, if we had, I should have given Nolan a calculator.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
What is that? Like 20, 32,
Yeah.
something like that. But like, you know, $32 million. It's like, okay, cool. Now I've got a nest egg, right? Like maybe I only rolled 30%, so I kept, or 20% or whatever. So I kept some money in that business, but I took some cash out so I could diversify, put in a new CEO, right? And now I'm running this thing over here. Like that might be the right call, you know what I mean? Versus, okay, I'm going to go focus over here and I'm going to put a CEO over here and hope this 15 million doesn't fall. You know what I mean? Like that wouldn't make very much sense. Whereas if it's a rocket ship and it's like, I'm going to be at 30, 45 or whatever. It's like, at that point, it depends on, I mean, for me, dude, I like starting new things. So like I have
most of us do.
Yeah. It's like my problem, dude. It's like I love starting new things. Like it gets me fired up. It's super exciting. Like I love it. So I weigh that into my equation too. You know what I mean? Like when I'm choosing where, you know, like how many things to focus on or whatever. It's like the right thing is probably to focus on one always, but God didn't build me that way. You know what I mean? So like I like to do multiple things and so I think you got to kind of weigh in. You're like, there's the dollars and cents component of it. Are these cash flow, or like, am I trying to get cash flow out of this for forever, like an annuity, or am I trying to exit this at some point? And then there's, you know, like growth trajectory for the company. You know, I mean, like, is it growing rapidly? Well, if it is, I probably continue on this ride. I don't know. There's a balance.
Well, yeah, I think that you could find a formula if you look at diminishing marginal returns of continued effort within that main company, and also how efficient, like what's the actual production function, like how efficient are the inputs versus the outputs.
Yeah.
Like if it's insanely efficient and you have this thing is operating as good as it can be, which is a hard thing to know if you really have it, and you're approaching a diminishing marginal return for TAM or whatever reason we want to say it is. Then it could make sense to do something new. Yeah, whether that's even a new product line within the same company or a new portfolio company altogether.
Yeah, dude.
That's kind of how I think about it.
Yeah, you said that was money, bro. We should.
I thought a lot about this.
That was fire. my one little thing to just extra little sprinkle on top there would be like, one thing you want to consider is if you plan on exiting the company, you should have prepped that company to at least take the next step for whoever you're acquiring. You know what I mean?
It makes sense.
You know what I mean? Like, so you want to write that in, because you're like, you know. If you're selling a company because it's about to die, I mean, like, that's so lame. Yeah. But I mean, like, you know, like, all right. But you should be baking in, hey, this is going to at least double, you know what I mean, from wherever I'm leaving it. And so, like, but it's okay because you're going to get the cash out and you want to deploy the cash better than you would, you know, from reaping what you've already prepared for it to double or whatever. So, like, I don't know.
So you're in an interesting position because with the portfolio, you've tested a lot of offers. And I'm curious, what's, from like an offer level, what's the difference between an offer that just is like okay to lukewarm versus nuclear?
So like, I think if you're on the front end and it's just like, hey, fun testing stuff or whatever, there's so many factors, honestly. Like, even from, I mean, there's different things that are popular and there's certain things that aren't. That's one. Yeah. You know, like you're looking for tailwinds, right? Yep. Like you're looking for tailwinds. So we track, you know, our freaking 20,000 something or other different education platforms to try to find waves of like, what are people interested in right now? Yeah. So like, what are people interested in right now? What's going well? Where are people, you know, we track all the way through their little marketing apparatus to figure out like, okay, like what do we think their metrics look like, CAC to LTV? And, you know, for those, we're trying to be second mover. And so like you can come in and have a lot of a good base to understand like why something should win in this market. So I think there's that. The reason why offers fail, dude. Oh, here's something. I don't know. This is probably a terrible analogy, but all right, I was watching National Geographic, okay? And they were basically walking you through how to, like, you know, trap a wolf. And the guy goes out there and he's like, all right, today we're gonna try to trap a wolf. And he like takes his trap and he like puts it down and then he like puts a T-bone steak in there and he's like, like scurries off or whatever, right? And like the wolf is just like, no freaking way, dude. Walks past, is like, I'm not going over there.
Yeah.
And he's like, dang it, right? And he's like, okay, well, we're gonna try something else. And like basically, you know, in order to actually trap a wolf, dude, you like it had to be like fresh snow. They had to freaking boil the trap. You know what I mean? Like the meat had to look like it was an animal that had just died. You know what I mean? Like, and like they had to put tree branches that had fallen from the tree to create a cubby so that the wolf would walk in from the front instead of snagging it from the back. Like it was all these different little things. And then they had to like cover their tracks a certain way, yada, yada, yada. And then finally they might catch a wolf, right? And it was like, holy crap, dude. It was for a wolf, right? It's like supposed to just be an animal. You'd think they just eat the food. And I think that, so not to call prospects wolves, okay? Bear with me on this. But like when you're making an offer, I think the number one reasons why, you know, like products or offers or anything you want to sell doesn't work is because the way you prepared it was like not like you couldn't trap a wolf.
Yeah,
you know
it's
what I mean?
packaging.
Yeah, it's like you couldn't trap a wolf with it. Like the way it comes into it's not the through line between when they see the ad to where they could buy on the page. Those don't make sense, right?
Yeah.
Or they don't land perfectly. Or like, you know, it's like it's really like we had one that we were, you know, it was just a test for an offer recently for some home services stuff as we're kind of like
Interesting.
Yeah. So there's a lot of neat, like, I don't know, it's fun, dude. There's so many cool things to make. But we were testing that, and like one of the things that was a big problem with the funnel is that they would come through, and then like right before they would register, it would be like in Phoenix, Arizona, and so like people would get all amped up, and then be like, wait, I gotta go to Phoenix, Arizona for this,
Right? Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like whereas nothing on the front end prepared them for that, and the marketing was national. And it's like as soon as we removed that, our marketing metrics normalized, and the thing worked. You know what I mean? So like there's things like, or at least I hope it worked. I haven't checked back, dude. Maybe this is a whole lie.
It worked.
It worked.
It worked.
Amen. I think it actually. I think yeah. But like that was the biggest. Like people stopped right there. You know what I mean? Like that was what was stopping them. And so like you just gotta really be thoughtful. Like you're interacting with other people. Be at a high enough level of quality that people are wowed. It's the same thing with service. Like there's a difference between, you know, I can't remember. I think this might be a Ritz-Carlton thing or something. But they're, you know, like someone's at the, they're at an event, and the person walks over and is like, hey, there's no coffee at the event or whatever. Like, you know, like, is there coffee? I thought there was gonna be coffee here. And the person's like, oh, you know, like, no, like, we're so sorry. You know, there's no coffee. Like, I'm really sorry. I understand coffee's really not, like, you know, it would be nice to have, but, you know, like, the hotel has certain rules, and we aren't able to put coffee in the rooms. Like, you know, I really apologize about that. And it's like, is that good service? It's like, well, I mean, it wasn't bad service, but what's better service is like, what's your coffee order? I'll go get you. I'm going to Starbucks right now. I'll get you a coffee.
Exactly.
That's better service, right?
Yeah.
And it's like that. People are like, I'm in for that, dude. Like that's freaking cool. And that's the difference between trapping a wolf and not trapping a wolf. It's like, is it so good, right? Like, can you make it so that people are like, I haven't seen that before, right? Like, can your copy be so good? People are like, this is a joy to read. Can your product be so good that people are like, dude, this is like freaking working on an iPad? You know what I mean? Like it's something can you take it one ring above what's out there? And even if you get close to that, you know, like,
I like how your offer insights come from watching National Geographic on a Sunday.
Dude. That's right, dude.
Let me tell you about National Geographic.
That's
All
why
right.
if you're talking about offer creation, you
tell you
probably
about-
should listen to Cole.
Let me tell you
before
about
listen
wolves.
to me. Let me tell you about wolves.
I like that. I like that. How do you make some of these? Because you're working with educators in the portfolio, right?
Yep.
You need to harness like their zone of genius, their expertise, et cetera. How do you make them happy? You know, how do you like? Because obviously, you know, you guys are doing a lot of the work and a lot of the operations and stuff, which is very important. You know, how do you make sure they value that? They see the right amount of value there. That they're also happy. It's a win-win.
Yep.
Yeah. What's the biggest?
I think you've got two. I mean, so I think the first division is between subject matter experts, and then we call them like brand visionaries, but like the people that we put like that are on the front end of, you know, like reaching the world with the product for the first time or introducing people to it.
Right.
And those can be the same person. They can also be different, right? Subject matter experts are, I mean, some of the coolest people ever. They love curriculum design. They want to live in that world, right? And they're very good at laying things out in frameworks that people can ingest and understand and relate to, but also learn from, you know what I mean, and then implement and see the result. Whereas, people that you're going to use more to like reach the world are probably better storytellers. They're probably more naturally interesting. You know what I mean? Like that's their gifting, right? And they probably enjoy creating a bunch of like social media type content. Whereas your quintessential maybe subject matter experts are more like they read a lot, they have gone through a lot of different programs, and they know exactly how humans learn, so they can build the curriculum correctly. So like I think that there's a divide there. There's not always, and a lot of people try to bridge those two things, and then end up like either you find a unicorn who's like exceptionally talented, which we have some of those, that's really phenomenal on both. Like they can educate really well so people get it, and they're super interesting and inviting on the front end. Right. So like, I mean, if you can find that person, that's amazing. You're going to compensate that person obviously more. Whereas, I think the more normal is someone can be focused on the front end and really bring people in, and you're probably paying them some type of affiliate, something along those lines. They get the benefit of like you're spending a lot of money maybe to ads, like so they're coupled with your product. Your product has a lot of name recognition, so it's beneficial to them. They get to be out in people's feeds all over the place, so they'll find their personal socials, so they can grow their personal brand. So they get benefits like all these natural second effect benefits. Whereas your subject matter experts, for the most part, it's more of your quintessential hiring program, right? You're going to post the job. These are the requirements. You want them to have a certain experience from like a curriculum design, whatever.
Nice. Okay. Little pivot. What do you do with your money in terms of investing? So, and I want to throw in a little caveat here because I'm curious how much you actually, because obviously Keekly, for people who don't know, you're one of the biggest wholesalers in the nation. Then a lot of your brands are around real estate in one way or another. Do you invest a ton in real estate? Or like I know, what's really interesting, Ryan Serhan, for instance, he's obviously like, big broker or whatever. He doesn't invest in real estate at all because for him, it's like, well, my active income is basically real estate. So I want to diversify with my passive income. And, one of my kind of maxims I do my wealth sort of generation from is you want to be concentrated. You want to create wealth through concentrated active income, and then stay wealthy by diversified passive income.
Yeah, that's
So I'm curious, how do you think about your investments portfolio? Do you invest in a lot of real estate, et cetera? And also, I'm selfishly asking because I'm like the, Jim Cramer, where they're like inverse Cramer. And it's like, if you inverse Cramer, for real estate, you could just inverse all of my investments. And if there was a way to short my real estate investments, you'd probably be like worth $100 million.
Oh, crap, dude.
I'm like, if I invested in your real estate fund, it's bad news.
Dude.
It's bad news. It is actually true. Hopefully not anymore.
Shoot, sorry, dude.
No, anyways, go on.
Well, you're in a lot of like single family too, and
I was, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for people who don't know, did single family, lost a lot of money. Then did Airbnb, lost pretty much all my money. Then did I did syndications, but I did that right before interest rates took off. Lost a lot of money. And so I've had some funds return, and it's not all zero, but out of like, let's say a 12% allocation to the portfolio that I have, I'll probably take a 5% haircut.
Okay.
Like when it's all said and done, that'll probably be 7% of my portfolio.
Got
going back to the bank. But anyways,
that cuts.
Share with me your portfolio wisdom.
Yeah, I don't know if I have a lot of portfolio wisdom, but I agree with your maxim basically on make your money concentrated and then go broad, diversify, and that's how you invest and grow your money, and protect it. So I like that. I think that maybe the one difference is I have a unique window into real estate, and so I can make better. I have an advantage. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
if I invest in real estate. So I'd still have some of my money in real estate, but
and
multifamily,
okay.
yeah. But principally, the my portfolio probably looks like most, like a lot of equities, some annuities, that type of stuff, and then just, I mean, we have it with a local wealth advisor, right? And I mean, they've got what, $6 billion assets under management.
Are we with the same person?
You use
Do?
So we use Do, but I don't use Do for my financial management stuff. Yeah, we use Wild Wealth. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, which is actually the dude's last name. Okay, it's not like he's wild over there with the dollars.
I actually just like Wild Wealth. That was interesting.
Sounds good, dude.
That's a good name. Good name.
But yeah, so we use them, and then, but like, I mean, they do some smart things. Like picking 10 stocks instead of just investing in the S&P 500, because then you can take a loss on like
Well, that's a direct indexing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's super advanced stuff. I have some really interesting options for that. How much do you ascribe to, a lot of the macroeconomists like Ray Dalio, and there's a bunch of others, but he's the most prominent one.
Yep.
With focusing, do you think more about like international emerging markets, gold, et cetera? My portfolio is basically probably half, 45%, just good old like U.S. equities, S&P,
Yep.
or maybe there's certain small cap or heavier tilt towards AI growth or whatever type of stuff. But it's mainly like index funds for S&P. And then 50% is equities. But then within that 50%, maybe like 60, 70% is U.S. equities. And then the rest is international emerging markets.
Yep.
And then I have, probably 10% gold, 12% real estate, 7% crypto, or maybe 10% crypto now. It goes up and down so much, depends on when you calculate it.
Yep.
Then I have some private company holdings that I would say about another 10%, in private companies that I would call it ventures. Some I'm actively involved, some I'm not.
Yep.
And then I'd have to go through the sheet to figure out cash, bonds. That's probably another 15%, and then some stuff I'm not thinking about.
Yeah.
But I'm curious because I kind of have it set up to where it's a little bit of like a U.S. dollar decline tilt.
Yep.
Do you think that way at all or no?
I mean, I think that there's a lot of opportunity in emerging markets. Like I had a buddy that he flew out to Turkey. This is a couple of years ago, and spent all this time. He's like, this doesn't make any sense. He's like, it was the property, plant, and equipment of this company. Like the book value was like $850 million, and their market cap was like $16 million. And so he was like, what the frick? This is in Turkey. Years ago before it blew up, but he was like he should have put $1 million in. He put $100,000 in, right? And it was like a 52 bagger or something. So it's like worth $5 million or something now. Because, basically Turkey as a market kind of exploded, right?
Yeah.
And so like, I think you have an opportunity for some outsized returns. Like India is really interesting right now. Japan's pretty interesting. So I think it's fun. I enjoy participating in that type of stuff.
Yeah, to be clear, I don't do that single picking. I just index fund an emerging market ETF. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a good idea. Yeah. I'm just more my drive for it is less sophisticated than yours.
Okay.
Mine's just like, I think it's cool, dude. If I could go to like India and be like, yeah, man, this is a cool company. They make slippers, bro. I got some dollars in here.
Yeah.
So I think mine's less sophisticated. Yours is more like huge, macro trend. Are we going to see this, and can I hedge against it? But I think it's smart.
Okay. Yeah, it's weirdly like, I don't know if you have this, but I go through periods of being very obsessed with one topic, and the last 3-4 months have been like macro investing.
Really?
For some reason. Yeah. Just like reading
That's a
all
good
about
topic.
that. Well, it also makes you feel like the world's going to collapse. So you're just like,
also
okay, yeah,
that.
great. Like I'm preparing for the collapse.
I'm preparing for the
Preparing for the good old collapse. Cool. Last thing we'll touch on is AI. Is there anything interesting you're doing with
AI
your
stuff?
companies with AI
Dude,
agents?
we've got a lot of fun things. We're about to relaunch the Movable AI's new platform. Will relaunch here in 2 months, so that's exciting. So we're pumped about that. Should be pretty cool. Then as far as AI just in our companies, I mean, like it's really been a benefit to us. We haven't done anything crazy as far as, I feel like, maybe I shouldn't say this, but like I feel like we've done all the regular stuff that most people are doing with AI. The stuff that it's like just inside the companies from an operational efficiency perspective. Some of the stuff that we're doing, I feel like is really freaking cool on the AI side of things is we're going to launch, it's called Molly, but MALLI. And that basically, like, it's an inside of New Reach, but more or less facilitates community. It's kind of like if you were to take, like OpenClaw, and then you plug it into all the data across the community. So if you've got a property, you're like, hey, I got this deal, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, interesting, yeah.
And it's like,
because especially with real estate, just for people, there's a lot of cooperation that can happen. That's different than maybe if somebody was starting, a e-commerce business or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So it facilitates that.
It facilitates the like actual deal flow by like, oh yeah, let me connect you with this Owners Club member. Drops them in a group chat.
That's good.
And then tracks like, one, there's a huge utility from the data perspective that allows us that is useful for the whole community. And then also just facilitate ROI for members of the community. Like, oh, you need a lender? Here's a lender, right? Like, and to do that on a level that's like so granular that I feel like it's going to be hugely impactful. So we'll launch that here shortly, which will be cool.
Yeah, I would agree. We have stuff where we're automating certain workflows. A lot of it is really right now just making certain employees more efficient with what they already do.
Yep.
Like a big example I can give you is like, this one's easy for me to speak on, is like sales manager QC.
Yep.
And so we have like certain dashboards that, because you can't quality control every call.
Yep.
But you can train an AI to kind of, number one, do a first pass and then really let you know which are the ones you should, QC. Because a salesperson, I mean, one call they could do really good, next call it's like they forget everything they told you, right? So there's that. Another really interesting one that actually might be interesting for you is, so like obviously in marketing, you can basically hold the marketing team accountable to like an MQL, to where we're like, okay, if they answer this on the app and they show up and blah blah, they meet this qualifications, they're a MQL and they're this score of an MQL. Like we have 3s, 4s, and 5s, and they could be a 3.3 or a 4.2, and that's based on a variety of things they could put in the application. You could even do it super sophisticated. For instance, if they have an email that's at company name, it's a higher. No matter, I guarantee you, it's a higher quality lead than Gmail. And then weirdly, we found like Yahoo and some of these other ones are higher quality than Gmail. That's pretty strange.
If they're on Outlook, dude, straight to the top.
Outlook,
dude.
that's a good one, right? So you could go super sophisticated with that. But the problem is let's say you have a MQL that's on the calendar. Well, like even if you have 2 MQLs with the same app answers, who shows up on the call is wildly different in quality. Like anybody who's taken sales calls would say that, right? Because who shows up on the call is going to be different people.
Yeah.
And one might have tons of intent and watched a bunch of content, and one might not to. And granted, maybe you could find that on the application too.
Yeah.
But what would be very interesting is a rolling quality score day to day that rolls up to weeks and months. That is a qualitative, because basically an MQL is a quantitative based score.
Yep.
And then you can't rely on the salespeople because they just say it's good or it's bad based on if they closed. So then with the AI, it can basically analyze the prospect's transcripts, their level of intent, and all this stuff, and use your certain criteria, really the same stuff you do in the application, and then be like, hey, our MQL score is still 3.3, but we did see a decrease to 2.7 this week in the qualitative score. And it's something to actually finally validate the conversation of like, when your marketing team says the leads are fine and the sales team says they're not. And you're like, well, the data says it's fine. But your sales manager's like, no, man, like I swear to God, I reviewed all these calls. Like it's bad.
Something happened. Everyone's been homeless.
Like you guys did something. So this actually can finally answer
really cool.
that with a metric.
Yeah, that's super cool.
So that's like one I'm quite passionate about.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah. Cool. Anywhere you want people to go, find out about you, follow up.
No, dude, just keep watching cool stuff.
All right.
Okay?
So the CTA is subscribe.
Subscribe, guys.
There you go.
Yeah.
How about that? Thank you for coming on, man.
Heck yeah. It was a joy.
If you enjoyed this podcast, you're also probably going to like this podcast I also did recently that you can check out by clicking the screen right here.